Welcome to Africa Say, where the estate shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores beyond of thinking, beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He's a leader, innovator, team builder, and of course, problem solver, none other than Mr. Clint Rush.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate you having me.
Welcome, Mr. Clean on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little bit of background on me. I grew up in the Midwest, spent some time in the military, spent some time leading businesses, lived in Texas for 10 years where I learned about great barbecue, and then now live in the Kansas City area. About a year ago, I purchased a 30-year-old cabinetry business from the founders and have been leading it for the last year, and have really loved that experience. Got a couple of kids. I've got a wife who can play golf much better than me, and I really just enjoy getting to spend as much time as I can with them.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Clean. Thank you. And today let's talk about making exceptional decisions. So tell us, how do you define an exceptional decisions as opposed to merely a good one? Is it about the outcome, the process, or the courage required?
I think it's a great way to frame it. Um, I think an exceptional decision is one that when you look back on it, um, you don't challenge the process and you are okay with the outcome. Um, that requires the courage. That requires that comfort and that willingness to be okay making a decision in an environment of ambiguity. But I think that what makes a great decision isn't necessarily that it was the right decision, isn't necessarily that it turned out perfectly. It's that when you look back with the benefit of hindsight, you say, you know what, the process worked. Because if we do that enough over time, you're just going to eventually get out. You're gonna create wins. Um, it's about probabilistic thinking, and so um, I think having a good decision making process is important. But I think that what's really a hallmark of a great decision, and one that you can be really proud of, is when you can look back and say, yeah, knowing what I know now, I think that the process worked, not necessarily the decision worked.
Interesting. Yeah. Master, to what extent is making exceptional decision an act of courage versus a product of pure logic? Can you share example where courage was defining element?
Absolutely. So I'm a big believer in Colin Powell's belief that, or his theory that all great decisions are made between 40 and 70% of the available information. Um, when you make a decision earlier than 40%, you're not making a decision, you're making a guess. And you can think about all the decisions that we have in life, from things as mundane as what to wear today, right, to things as complex and really life changing as who am I going to spend the rest of my life with as a spouse. And anybody who makes those decisions with less than 30%, or excuse me, less than 40% of the available information, um, I mean, you can't feel comfortable about that kind of a decision. When I get out of the shower in the morning, I ask, the Amazon device to tell me what the weather is today, and I think that most people do something similar to that, whether it's checking their phone, looking out the window, whatever it is. You're not just walking into the closet and grabbing the first thing on the rack. You're thinking about what to wear, and that's a really mundane decision, but everybody has a general understanding of why you need that first 40%. The other side of it, which is, being able to stop at 70 and not continue to go to 80 and 85 and 90 and 100%, is about not burning the benefit of the decision. I mentioned that I think it's important to be able to look back on a decision and be comfortable with the process. I think that part of that is decisions are a way to say, I'm going to shortcut what's going to happen. Um, if you just wait for all of that information to be in front of you, you you're gonna invalidate the need for the decision. So I think in that respect, being able to be at 40 to 70 is really important. So what's an example of a decision where that courage happens? Buying my business was one. You can do
Hmm.
all the due diligence you want in the world, but at the end of the day, you're still making a guess. You're still making a gamble. And I felt very comfortable that there was 30% I didn't know. And I'm okay with that. I'm going to live in that world because I feel good about the 40 to 70 that I've got. Now it's turned out really well, and that's a really good thing. But when I look back on that decision, the thing I'm happy about is I did everything I could to get it into that 40 to 70 window. Not necessarily it turned out well, but I pulled it forward as far as I could to get it in that window. And I was disciplined enough to flip over rocks and to say, yeah, I might not like what I learn about this, but I need to learn it. So it turned out.
Mr. Clint, if you had to distill your entire framework for exceptional decision making down to one non negotiable principle, what would it be?
Down to one non-negotiable principle: make fewer decisions. Make fewer decisions, and part of that is, um, I think that too often we try to jump into decisions too early, or we make decisions that don't need to be made. Right? There are things where I don't need to make a particular choice. I might make it something bigger than it needs to be, and I want to focus my efforts on the big decisions. So as a leader, sometimes that means delegating. Um, I've got a team of really great people in my shop, and one of the things that I've really worked over the last year to drive home to a lot of these guys is 90 times out of 100, right? 9 times out of 10, I, when I say, "Hey, what should we do?" and one of them goes, "Well, I think we should do it this way." My answer is probably going to be, "Great, let's do what Dave said, or let's do what Mike said, or I mean, let's do what Kevin's thinking over here." Right? Those are the things that I'm going to defer to them. And so, if that's the case, then I don't need to be in that decision. I empower those guys to say, when it's in your wheelhouse, when you're the one who's good at it, make that decision yourself. That does a couple of things. One, it sharpens their ability to collect that 40 to 70 and be able to get better at gathering information so their decision gets tighter and more focused and more intense. But two, it gives me free time to be able to focus on my 40 to 70 for the bigger decisions. So that delegation step is really important to reduce the number of decisions on the plate. The second thing to do to reduce the number of decisions is systematize or create an algorithm for those decisions. You read about, like Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day, right? Same uniform, so to speak. And he's doing it because it reduces the number of decisions he has to make. Now, I think about our business. We've simplified a lot of things. We have one standard hinge that we use. So when we build a cabinet, we use that hinge all the time. I don't have to make a decision. It's just that's the hinge, right? We've done the same thing with drawer guides. We've done the same thing with pulls. We've done the same thing with, even to the level where we have a screw. That's our screw. We have a dowel. That's our dowel. We have a type of glue. That's our type of glue. And those things are they're decisions that would be made, but don't need to be. So by making fewer, I can focus my effort on the harder ones.
The inner game mindset and psychology, Mr. Clint. You suggest that who we are impact or impacts the decision we make. How can someone cultivate the identity of a decisive or exceptional decision maker before the big choice even arrives?
That's a good question, and I think a lot of it comes to being comfortable with outcomes, being comfortable with consequence. You're not going to get them all right. I had somebody ask me once, how good are you at making good decisions? And I said, I think I'm probably about 60 to 65%. I think that, probably 2 out of 3 I get right. I do well. And he was very surprised at how low that number was. He said, I would think that you would want to be much higher than that. And I said, well, eh, you're not gonna be. And to be at a 90%, you're gonna the stress that that's gonna create just doesn't work. So I think, the way somebody can create that mindset and can put themselves in the right place, um, is to be comfortable with the outcomes, be comfortable with the idea that, you're going to have to make a decision again. And if that's the case, it's a lot easier to say I'm more focused on getting it better than it is today than perfect for tomorrow. um, I think a lot about the OODA loop, which is a creation of John Boyd, who's a fighter pilot. And the idea is that you observe, you take in information, you orient, you put it in the context of what you know, you decide, and then you act. And by acting, you create a response that then allows you to get more information, right? So then it triggers another OODA loop. And so you continue to go through this, and the idea is to go through it as fast as possible, knowing that your first decision is probably going to be wrong. Well, if you're good with that, if you can get to a place where you're okay with, I might be wrong right now, but I'll be right after that, then that self-doubt really dissipates. And it becomes more about how do I improve my surroundings? How do I improve my situation rather than how do I get it perfect on the first try?
What are the most common psychological biases that sabotage a good decisions, and what your best technique for disarming them?
I think there are two that are at the absolute top of the list. The first one, is the sunk cost fallacy, right? Is the idea that we've put so much into something, we've got to continue to go down that path, or I've worked really hard at this, we can't get rid of it. There are two areas where I've seen that recently. One, I'm a huge Wisconsin Badgers football fan. That's where I went to college, and I think our current coaching situation and our current that whole administration is tied up in, well, this is the thing we've been doing, so we've got to stay the course. And it's the problem with that thinking, the problem with that approach is that I just talked about this idea of the OODA loop. You get information from the decision and the action of that decision. If you don't take that information back in and you just remain really fixed on your priors and you say, I've got so much invested in this, um, it short circuits that decision process and it makes you really anchored to what you were doing before. Another area where I've seen that, is in my business. There's a natural tendency that a lot of people have, especially in our industry, to say, well, we got to hang on to that piece of material. We got to hang on to that scrap. Um, and it's funny because if you talk to anybody who has a wood shop, they've all got just tons and tons of scrap. Well, the problem with that is now we can't get around in the shop. It's not efficient. So the decision needs to be, can I use that right now? And if I can't, then it's got to go in the garbage. So the answer some people have given me, and I've heard this from my guys, is, well, we paid for it, right? We paid for it. Well, yeah, that's true. But we paid for it whether we throw it away or whether we sit it and keep it on a shelf for a year and then throw it away. The difference is that if we throw it away now, that shelf space can be used for something else. So I think that's the first fallacy or first bias that gets in the way. The second one, um, is an obsession with perfection. You're not going to be perfect. Perfect decisions don't exist. If they did, they wouldn't be decisions. It'd be very obvious. It'd be very evident. I read I saw a thing. There was a documentary I saw on the chief of staff in the White House, and Donald Rumsfeld says the president, he says, never makes a good decision. He only makes he chooses between bad and really really bad. And his point is, if there's a good option, it's been selected long before it gets to his desk. So I think when people say, well, I don't think these are the best options, let's keep going back to the drawing board. Let's keep going back to the drawing board. If there was a perfect option, it would already have happened. Amazon just did a bunch of layoffs today. They started a bunch of layoffs. There's nothing about those conversations that's going to be fun. There's nothing about the decision that's fun. And anybody who was involved in that process, who was seeking an outcome that wasn't unpleasant, they're just going to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And you can't have that. You've got to be able to make the decision right away. So I think the second one there really is kind of paralysis by analysis. It's being stuck in trying to find perfect.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Clint. Where does institution fit into a rational decision making process? How can we learn to trust our gut without letting it be led by unchecked fear or desire?
Where does intuition fit into the decision making process? I think that intuition is absolutely essential. When I think about good decision making, one thing that I have found works for me, and I don't know if this works for everybody, but it certainly works for me, is I try to think about the decision from a gut instinct perspective before I've consumed any information, right? Before I've brought anything in. I just want to, what's all the experience I've had in life, all the things that I've brought to the table, what does that tell me right off the bat? And then I kind of put that on the shelf and I go, okay, now I want to consume everything I can about this. I want to gather information. So tell me, I'll talk to my team. I'll gather information, whatever I need to do to inform that decision. And then I make it again. And I look at what is the information tell me and what does my previous intuition tell me. If they're the same thing, I'm pretty sure it's right. Now, that's not, again, like I said, it's not a perfect solution, right? It's probably a 60%, 65% batting average. Um, but I think that being able to use that intuition as a base case and then build a second case around the information and use that to kind of bump against your intuition is really valuable. Um, Most people, by the time they get into a position where they're making difficult decisions, they've made easier decisions along the way. Um, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who said that the tough jobs usually go to the people who outgrow the small ones, and it's true. You go through this you build these small decisions that inform bigger ones and inform bigger ones and inform bigger ones, and eventually you get to a point where you can lean on some of those smaller ones. So I think that intuition is very valuable to start you. But if you stop there, I think what you're doing is you're making yesterday's decision again and forcing today's situation into yesterday's situation, into yesterday's constraints. And that's a very dangerous place to be.
Very dangerous indeed. How can the practice of mental time travel, imagining looking back on this decision in 10 years, create a clarity and lead more exceptional outcomes?
I think that being able to look backward and having the ability to your point, mental time travel. I love that phrase. Um, I think it gives you space. I think it removes some of the emotion of the decision. One of the things that I try to focus on is not making decisions when I can tell that I've got my Irish up, right? That I'm perturbed. If I'm unsettled and I make a decision, I'm generally reacting to a short-term um, emotional response. And that doesn't necessarily mean the decision is going to be short-term and emotional, but it means that short-term emotional is going to influence and it's going to inflame some part of the decision-making calculus. If you think backward, if you put yourself 10 years into the advance and look backward, all that emotion dissipates because when we look back on the experiences of our lives. I mean, look back on any experience you've had 10 years ago. You remember the good stuff. You don't remember the hard stuff. I I don't remember how hard it was to do all the push-ups I had to do when I was at basic training. I don't remember that. I think if anybody remembered all the negative things that came before, there'd be no second children in the world, right? There's a need to be able to see the positive in the things we've come through, not just the challenges along the way. So being able to jump forward 10 years and look back removes all of that negative emotion. And it gives you a clarity around how am I going to feel about this down the road? Nobody wants to be down the road saying I overreacted. They don't. And so it gives you a colder, more sterile environment in which you can make that decision. Um, that doesn't mean that you should take emotion out of it completely, but I think it's one more viewpoint as you construct your decision making algorithm.
Mr. Clint, how can a leader effectively communicate a difficult, unpopular decision in a way that maintains trust and brings people along?
I think it starts before the decision is made. If you make a decision like that, that's that big and that impactful, and you do it in isolation, you're not going to bring people along. It won't work. If you bring that person in and you introduce them to here's the thought process. I'm not saying it's your decision, but I want your opinion. That helps that person to understand how you came to that decision. Now I get it. Sometimes that's not possible, but where possible, pursue that. Because if you can do that and you can bring people in and have them understand how you got there, they may not agree with where you ended up. They may not agree with the actual decision, but they're going to say, I played a part. I understood it. I get it. I got to participate in getting there. And that makes it a lot easier. I don't think people fear change. I think people fear change that they weren't involved in the creation of. So if they have an opportunity to inform that decision, no matter how it shakes out, they at least had their chance to speak up.
Mr. Clint, in an era of endless choice, what are your top strategies for conserving mental energy for decisions that truly matter?
I pursue as much silence as I can. I don't listen to the radio in the car. I drive in silence, which sounds weird. And the first couple of days you do it, it's very weird. But I pursue as much silence as I can. Because when you are in silence, it allows your mind to wander. And when your mind wanders, it always brings about very interesting perspectives on things. There's a reason that people, oh, I had this great aha moment in the shower, right? It's because it's silence, because you're not focused on taking anything else in. So the biggest thing that I do is quiet my mind as often as I possibly can. Silence, I think, is an incredible weapon there. So, any chance I have to create it, I create it. Um, Now, I happen to work in a wood shop, so it's not that common when I'm there, but I try to pursue it outside of there.
Silence is the key, people. Silence, silence. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 fourth season, and my baby podcast law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in a fourth season, and my movie 101 review, music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Clint, what is one simple daily habit people can do, adapt to sharpen their decision making skills over time?
Breathe, breathe. there's a lot of research that says that taking deep breaths helps you make better choices, helps you make better decisions. And so I think that one of the things that I've been successful at doing is when there's a difficult situation, when there's something that's substantial in front of me, uh, I take some very slow, very deep breaths. I use the box breathing method that you can find good descriptions of online. But it's a great way to quiet the mind very quickly and to incorporate that into your day-to-day routine. It doesn't take long. It's not hard. It's not something that requires a tremendous amount of training or there's nothing around it. You can just start doing it tomorrow. And I've found it to be very helpful at creating some mental space and some mental clarity to be able to make good choices and make good decisions.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Clint. So, can you please expound the phrase on your website? Leader, innovator, team builder, and problem solver.
I don't know that you said.
Yes, can you please expound the
Yeah,
phrase on your website?
absolutely. So I think those four things are the most enjoyable things that I get to do. They're something that I try to find a way to do every single day with my folks. I think about Jim Valvano's speech at the ESPYS, where he said, if you can laugh and you can cry and you can pray in a day, that's a great day. And I think this is the same thing. If I have a chance to do those four things with my team every day, I'm ecstatic.
Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Clint, can you please invite the listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sure. So if you want to find me, clintrush.com is the personal website. Our business is cmctopeka.com, all one, cmctopeka.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Clint Rusch. You can find me on X or Twitter at Field to Rush, FeelDarusch. And would love to connect with anybody and continue conversations. So thanks so much and really appreciate you having me. Thanks, Daniel.
You're welcome, Mr. Clint. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Clint Rusch because if you support them, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to come. So, Mr. Clint, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it, Daniel. Thank you.
Modicon people, see you soon.